Hello. Hopefully that's all working. I'm going to wait a little bit until I get confirmation, and then we're good to go. So hello to everybody who is with us in the chat. I believe we've got some people who are only going to half be there. That's crazy, but never mind. So hello to everyone who is there. Right, I'm being told you can hear me, which is great. Let's get on with it. So this is a follow-up to last week's session, which was photo books. And this time we're looking at advanced photo book techniques. So we're broadcasting in 1080p. Make sure you're receiving in 1080p. There is a cog in the lower right-hand corner. There is a red flash on it, or there should be. If there isn't, then change your settings and make sure that there is. While you're down there, that cog, there's a like button as well. So do feel free to hit the like button. I see so far we've got 14 likes. Let's see if we can get to 100 before the end of the session. Right, if you've never heard of me, I'm Elaine Giles, long-time Affinity user, since the original Affinity designer was in beta, way back in 2014. And I've used all the Affinity apps every day since then. Everything we look at today is just as relevant on a Mac and Windows. Because we're working with version 3, it doesn't work on the iPad yet, but I'm sure they'll sort that out given enough time. So what are we looking at today? Well, as you can see, it's a full agenda. I will be looking at InDesign Files, which was something I mentioned briefly last week but didn't look at. Then we've got the adventures of Wraparound Covers. Oh, that's exciting. If only it worked properly, but we can fix it. Then I'll be looking at converting shapes and working with custom frames. I will look at advanced wrapping and the place panel, which don't go looking for it, it's very hidden. Then the appearance panel, which is something I used to do in Affinity Designer. But now Affinity is one application, everything you need is at your fingertips. We'll be looking at 2 ways to do a table of contents for your photo books, and then getting right to the end of the process where you've created everything you need and you create some master pages from it, and finally create a native Affinity template. Right, we will be taking Q&A. So put your questions in the chat as we go. We'll collect them ready for the Q&A at the end of the session. If you can remember to put a Q at the beginning, that will make life a little bit easier. And the other thing is, give me a little bit of context as to what you're talking about, because we have a delay on YouTube, and it means that if you put a question in and say, can you show me that dialog box again? We could have had 4 dialog boxes since then because of this disconnect in time. So give me a little bit of context as well, and that would be very helpful. I have my trusty assistant with me, don't I, Mike? Yes, I've got a there. So Mike will be collecting those questions and we will deal with them at the end. We love to read the chat, so please keep it friendly in there. And I'm not affiliated with Canva or Affinity, never have been, just been a customer of both, and that's it. So, advanced photo book techniques in Affinity. We're going to start off by looking at working with InDesign Files. Now, as I said last week in the previous session, which was designing a photo book, we deliberately didn't talk about this. What we did mention was that there were 3 steps to producing a photo book. Your pre-production considerations, production, which is creating it, and post-production, which tends to be getting it out to print or out to digital. So last week in pre-productions, I said there were 4 options. There was downloading a plugin from various sites, so this would be your print service. Downloadable templates that you can get from many places. Specifications and creating from scratch. And last week we looked at the bottom 2. Now, downloadable templates, if you can download an Affinity template, great. But most of the templates that you come across are actually InDesign templates. So this time I will look at that because there are many InDesign templates available on the internet. Right, first thing you need to know, file formats in InDesign. Now, there are many, because just like in Affinity where you have font files and you have styles, but the main 3 that you need to be aware of with InDesign is an INDD, which is a native standard InDesign file. Then there is the one in the middle, the IDML, which is an InDesign markup language file. They are your friend if you are using Affinity. They are an XML-based file format which is compressed. And that file describes the content, the layout, and the styles that are in an InDesign document. Now, the good news with it is it's a universal interchange file format, so you can share InDesign projects. Now, the reason that it's there is for compatibility with older InDesign versions, and much more importantly for us Affinity and Affinity Publisher users, that is the file format that Affinity can open natively. So if you find you have got an IDML file, Affinity can open it with no issues whatsoever. Now, an INDT file is an InDesign template file. So when people sell these templates or provide these templates, they're not actually templates. There is a dedicated template format. That is no use whatsoever to Affinity users. And to be honest, I don't see many INDTs included in these templates that you can download. But those are the three file formats you need to know about. We are going to focus on the IDML, which Affinity supports. So let's go and have a look at that. So here's Affinity, ready and waiting. And I have downloaded a file. It is a photo book template. So let me show you what I've got here. InDesign photo book template. And in here, this is the file I downloaded. When you double click that, it unpacks to this. And this is normally what you'll see. Now, this one is not free. We'll put the link in there. This is not free. But it's just a demonstration to show you what you are able to download. So you will have your documentation with it, which will usually tell you if there's any fonts required. Now, this file is for InDesign. So notice that the link that they give you for the font is fonts.adobe.com. On the basis, if you're using an InDesign template, you will have Creative Cloud. If you have Creative Cloud, you will have access to Adobe fonts. If you do not, then take the name of the font and do a Google search for it. And some sites, like DaFont, will have something that's either identical or that you can use instead of the Adobe font. So you will find some instructions in there. You will usually find 2 files minimum. Now, there could be more than that. This is an A4 version. Sometimes you'll get 4 files and there's 2 letter versions. But notice the file extensions, INDD. That is no use to us. Now, I don't have Creative Cloud installed on this machine. I have Creative Cloud, not on this machine. So when I look at the INDD, it doesn't know what it is. But if you look at the IDML, it most certainly knows what it is and is telling you that it's an Affinity document. Now, if you did have InDesign installed, it would tell you it was an Adobe InDesign file. When you don't, Affinity knows that it can open that file. So this one, absolutely useless to us. But this IDML file is the one that we're going to look at. Now, I didn't take the time and install the font. And that was because I want you to see what happens when you open this if you don't have the fonts. So I'll move that out of the way and open the file. And I will in here, let me just, did I have that? I definitely did. I definitely had the file open. Just need to find it. Where have you gone? There we go. So what I'm going to show you is what this looks like when you look at it online. So it's from a service called Brand Packs that make templates. It is a template site. There are hundreds of templates on here. And this is the one that I have downloaded. Now, it looks amazing. It is a photo book. I think it looks amazing because the photos look amazing. None of the templates that you download will tend to look like that because they're not able to give you the images unless those images belong to them and they license them to you. So that is what it looks like before you download it. When you download it, this is what it looks like. So it's exactly the same thing, but it has placeholders for your images. And we have in here 8 pages. So we've got some spreads. Notice, because I didn't install the font, this does not look right. The only thing that's wrong with it is the font it substituted it with is bigger than the font they expect you to use. But you often see problems like that. But you have a very nice layout there to use. You will notice from this that if I made a new file in Affinity and I put some margins in it, and I'd need a bleed as well, so let's go back and put a bleed on it as well, of 3mm. We have standardization in here. As I zoom in, we've got 3 things. We have the bleed, which is a lavender colour. We have the cut line, which is the edge of the printed page. And we have a margin, and that is in blue. Right, we have exactly the same in here, but the colours are different. And sometimes that can throw you a little bit. So let's zoom in and see what we've got here. Instead of lavender, we have this as red. And this is bright pink at the edge, but is that the margin? Let's have a look. No. Yes, oh, actually it is. It's pink. And the frame is red. So it's just different colours, but they mean the same thing. You can switch those if you want to. So in your view and your guides, you can see in here that the margins are set to pink. Your guides here that we haven't got any, they're set to blue. So you could change everything and change it back to the standard Affinity colours if you want. But this is showing you that you can download InDesign files and work with them as is. They may look slightly different than you're used to. For instance, if we look across here, we've got lots of stuff in here. We've got layers, which you can use in Affinity. They are there to use, but you don't tend to open a file and find them already there. In here, you can see each of these is different colour. So we've got green for the background here. We've got red for the images. And that's why when I move an image and we look at the edges of it, it's red, because that's been determined by this here. You can, if you right click on this, change colours at the bottom for the layers, and you can apply colours to things as you've seen here. So just very quickly showing you that you could then take this InDesign file, start working with it, edit it, do whatever you need to do with it, and it will then, when you come to save it, be saved as an Affinity file. So if I were to save this, and we'll put it in the root of there, you can see it says A4 IDML. It can't save as an IDML file, so it should save as an Affinity file. So let me go across there, get to the right place, and even though it said IDML, you can see there, it's got IDML in it, but the actual extension is Affinity. You need to know, when it comes to sharing or collaborative work with InDesign users, Affinity can read IDML files. It's the only InDesign file format it can read, but it can read it. It cannot write any InDesign files. So you couldn't export to an InDesign format. The best you would be able to do is to export to a PDF, and then the InDesign user could maybe use that. But collaborative work between the two applications is, I'm going to say, impossible. It would certainly be uncomfortable, let's put it like that. But that question is asked a lot. You know, because I can read an IDML file, can I write an IDML file? And the answer is no. So, do we have any questions about that at the moment? Right, we've got no questions on that at the moment, so we'll move swiftly along. So I'll close that one and close that one. And we'll head back in here. We are moving on to wraparound covers. Oh, this has always been great fun. The way we used to have to do it, now that was before version 3, but also before the very last version, or the second to last version, of version 2 of Affinity Publisher. And that was, Publisher could have spreads, but those spreads could only contain 2 pages. And a wraparound cover, well, it looks more like that. Now, the spec for this is usually quite complicated, but we used to have to do it in InDesign. not what am I saying? Good grief, in Affinity Designer. We made a single file and we put all of the measurements in, and then we used margins to create the back cover, the front cover, and the spine. You can still do it that way. If you have templates that you're creating and you're making multiple different versions of wraparound covers, then you can make them. If you've already got the template, then use that. It doesn't matter what you use to make these things, but there is a big difference in terms of what we can do now. So that was the old way. Let me show you what that looks like. So I have a file that I can show you, which is this one, wraparound cover. Now, you'll notice it's switched to vector view, and it's one area. It should actually be an artboard. So let's go to the artboard. Well, let's not worry about that at the moment, but it would be an artboard. And these lines that you have are marking out the back cover on the left, the front cover on the right, and the spine in the middle. And I will mention at this point, because it was on the slide, if you're putting text on the spine, so let's say spine of photo book, and we'll obviously want that to be a bit bigger than that. So let's take it up. Make sure it's the right way round. And what I mean by that is, obviously we need to rotate it and put it on the spine of the book. Right, that is what it would look like in the UK, and I think America used the same. However, some countries in Europe do not do that. They have it that way round. Germany is definitely one. So I have a German printed book. It's the only one on the bookshelf that has the spine going the other way. So just something to be aware of. If you are producing this for somebody in a different country, make sure what they use for the spine. Which way do they go on the spine? Because you will probably, if you're UK or US, put it on your way and they may need it another way. So that's just a quick aside. But that is what it looked like. And it was not difficult to create, but not easy either. Once you'd done it, you'd save it as a template, put it like that. So that's the old way. We don't have to do that anymore. So let's get rid of that and go back in and look at the new way. Now, before I show you this, I'm going to create one live. I must be mad, right? And because of that, I need to tell you where I get the numbers from. Now, we looked at this last week. What does a specification look like? Now, this is a slightly different specification than the one we looked at last week, because if we look at the top, now this has come from Blurb. If we look at the top of it, you can see it says cover type, hardcover with a dust jacket, and 20 pages in the count. One of the differences that I've made with this is, if you look at the units of measurement, I've set it to points, not millimeters or not inches. Now, that isn't because I want to design the book in points. It's because I sat down last week and tried to do this. What a nightmare. If you use inches, you find yourself typing in or trying to type in, 11.37894 recurring. But if you use points, and you get exactly the same problem with metric, with millimeters, that would be like 284.937, points are whole numbers. So it's far easier to set it up as points. Now you may be thinking, yes, but I need to use millimeters or I need to use inches. You can change that and I will show you how to do it. So that's the spec we're working to. You'll notice at the top we have the page specification and at the bottom we've got the cover specification. So we have a dedicated specification for that. Now, where do you get them from? Your print service. And as I've just said, that one came from Blurb. How do you use it? Well, this is how you use it. So I have set it to points. I'm going to be using those figures that are in that bit there, which is the cover, to create this cover. It's a wraparound cover, and I'm going to do it using the new method that's available in anything after 2.64 of Affinity Publisher and obviously version 3 of Affinity. So let's go and do that. Right, so I've got referenced off screen all of my numbers that I'm going to need. So I'm going to need to create a new file in here. Right, this file is only going to contain this wraparound cover. So Command and N to get a new file. What size does it need to be? Well, we've seen the specification. It was a nightmare. There was a million sizes. At this stage, the good news is it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I create here, because I'm going to change every single page. So I'm not going to need even margins on it. I'm going to keep it really simple and just create an A4 page. So we have a page and it's A4. It's nothing like we need, but we will fix that. Right, you are probably aware of the fact that if you add pages to your Affinity file, and I'm in layout view here, which is same as publisher, we used to only have an option to add pages. So if I added some pages to this, add 9 pages to it, and I click OK, I get 9 separate pages. Now, if I had this set to facing pages, I'd have spreads. So if I go in and I do my, where are we in here? Facing pages, where are you? Don't hide from me. There we go, facing pages. Right, then we get this. Now, in here, you've got your front cover, your back cover, and you've got spreads in the middle, and those spreads are 2 pages. What you couldn't do was have any spreads with more than 2 pages. You might think, why on earth would I want a spread with more than 2 pages? Well, think about what we've got with our wraparound cover. We have a front cover, a back cover, a spine, and 2 flaps. Inside flap at the front, inside flap at the back. We need to be able to have more than 2 pages in a spread. Now, what I'm going to do is undo this to the point I've got 1 page, size of which does not matter, because we are about to make magic with it. Right, I'm going to keep the page at A4 at the moment. And I've said we need a flap at the back cover, spine, front cover, flap at the front. That's 5 pages. So I need to add 4 to the one I've already got. The trick here is to extend the spread, not flow the pages. So make sure you've got extend spread and click OK. And that is very different. I'm going to use Command and 0, which is Control and 0 on Windows, so we can see all of the separate pages on this spread. We can also see that on the left-hand side in the Pages panel. Right, it looks nothing like we need it to look, but we need to change that middle one to be the spine. So I'm going to right-click on it and go to Spread Properties. That brings up the Spread Properties dialog box. We can change everything about the spread. So the very first thing to think about here is, what is the height of each of these pages? Because obviously, height-wise, they're all going to be the same. And that is actually 882, not millimetres here. So, problem before we start. I could type points in here. A better way to work is at the point you set the document up, or afterwards, like you've seen me do here, go in and choose points. That way, it will show it to you correctly, and then go back in to your spread properties. So now we've got points showing here. And you can switch that back and forward as many times as you like. But trust me, when it comes to creating a wraparound cover, using points is easy. Using anything else is a living nightmare. Right. So, page height, they're all going to be the same height. And that height is 882 from my spec. So I just type in 882. And that makes them all taller. At this point, I'm going to show you that by going back into here. So now they're not A4. They're the right height, wrong width. Now we're going to work on these 5 pages. And we're going to work on the widths of them. We've got 2 that will be the same for the flap, 2 that will be the same for the front and back cover, but this one in the middle is the spine and it's going to be much narrower. Right, you'll notice as I click on that, it highlights it in blue and it takes us to selected pages away from spread. Spread is showing you everything. Whatever you do in here will apply to all of them. But once you select a page, you're only impacting one page. Right, the height I now do not need to concern myself with. But the width I do. Now remember, in the spec I said 20 pages. That then tells me that the spine needs to be 33 points. So I type in 33, press tab to move, and that applies it. Let's go and have a look at that. There's the spine in the middle. Obviously, if I had 40 pages, it would probably be somewhere around the 66 mark. Now, I still need to sort out the front and back covers. So I would go in here again. Now, I'm doing this in this way for two reasons. If I show it to you, then you know what's happening and what's going on. But I think I should be able to come into here and make selections and apply things and then choose different pages and change things. It doesn't work. It didn't work in the last version. It doesn't work in this version. So work in stages. You do the flaps first because they're the biggest difference. So I clicked on the first page, held the command key down, Control on Windows, and clicked the second page. Right. So if I click one, click a different one, but to select an extra one, hold the command key down. Right. Again, the height is fine, but the width is not. The width needs to be 284. So I'm going to type that in, and that will change both of them. And then I'm going to OK it so we can see it. Now we have a spine, and we can zoom in a bit because we've narrowed down. This is the front flap, this is the back flap. And the last thing we need to do is sort out the front cover and the back cover. So go back into our spread properties. This time we want this page and hold the command key down and that page. In the page width, I have this written down. It is 879. So 879. Only changed it fractionally. Now, your mileage may vary on that. I chose A4 to start with because it doesn't matter what you choose. You may choose to just put in something really silly like, 20 by 20. And that way you would easily be able to see the changes. But we now have a front cover and a back cover. And that is how you would make the wraparound cover. Obviously, in relation to that, you'd have to think about your bleed as well and set your bleed up. But that is the important bit when it comes to understanding how to make multi-page spreads. That you start off, I start off with one. Now, once I've got this like this, I've had to add 4, I've had to change the height, I've had to change the width of 5 pages. This is a great candidate to save and make a template of. If you're doing that all the time, the only caveat to that is, if it's a 12 by 12 photo book, which this one is, don't get the spine wrong by making it a template and then forgetting to change it if you had more than 20 pages. So I would call that something like 12 by 12 wraparound 20 pages. And I would have multiple additional copies of it for 40 pages, 60 pages or whatever, all the way up to 120. And that is how you make the wraparound cover. Now, I think I had here, let me have a look. Oh, that's the old way. Going into the new way. I had exactly the same thing, but I took the time to actually label it up so you could see what it was. And this one has margins, and it also has the bleed. And then all I've done is put some shapes on it to point out that we have a back flap, a front flap, the front cover, the back cover, and the spine in the middle. And that is exactly what we have created in here. And now it's a case of styling it and putting your content on that there. You can use multi-page spreads for other jobs. We will see one of those next week. You have to wait until the end to find out what that's all about. But yes, we will do that again. But that is by far the best way to do it. You could, as I say, use the old vector designer way, but it is actually much more complicated. And the other benefit of this is that if you're putting this somewhere for sale, so for instance, if you've done it for a local community group and you're making copies available for sale, you're going to need promotional materials. And in the design persona, as we had, vector, you'd have to make slices to be able to output this, export it as individual chunks. But these are pages. So you could just export that as is, and it would generate for you 5 pages, one for each element of it, that you can then use in a mock-up. It's genius. It's genius. Right, so that's how you make a wraparound cover. So I will save that and come out of that and come out of that. Right, that was creating wraparound covers. Obviously, the sizes will differ, but generally speaking, the principles are sound. Right, so last time we looked at picture frames and the benefits of using picture frames by comparison to using shapes and masking images with it, which seemed to be a really popular question. Why can't I do that? Well, you can do that if you want, but remember that picture frames are supercharged, but they are rectangular or elliptical. Let's see what we can do with other shapes. So, go and find my data. Right, and I've got just a file with a margin in here to put some shapes in. And we know that we can draw out a picture frame. And we've got shapes as well that we could draw out. So there would be nothing to stop you drawing out that. And technically, they sort of both work in a similar way. It's just that one's better than the other. So just to reiterate this, because people seem obsessed with using shapes. Now, I understand why you might be obsessed with using shapes if you want a shape that's not rectangular. That makes total sense. But just between the two of these, if we go to the stock panel and we drag this on. Now, notice I did not drag it inside the picture frame. I dragged it on there as is. Now, the brilliant thing with a picture frame is if I take this picture and I drop it inside the picture frame, I don't have to scale it and generally fiddle with it. Right, so that's the good news with it. Right, I'm making a copy of that and I'm just putting it back on the canvas here. And where on earth have you put it this time? Right, there we go. So we've got this picture here. Now, obviously, this came in much bigger, but we'll keep it there. So it's too big, but it's there. So what people are saying when they're asking the question, can't I just use a shape, is, what if I took this image and I put it inside the shape? Well, that went well, didn't it? It did actually work, believe it or not. But because the image, because it's just a shape, it's not a magic picture frame, it's there, but we now can't see it because it's masked to this here. If we move that, no, still not seeing it. But it is inside it here. And if we select it, that's why we're not seeing it, because the picture is on the right. The frame is on the left. But the problem with this is, as to why I would use picture frames, I've now got to fiddle to make it fit. So I've got to move it around like that. So it's stuck in that corner. I can bring it up here and then I can start moving it. The effect is identical. But in terms of how do I make that, how do I make the image bigger? I would have to go back over here. So this is my picture frame. This is my rectangle. I have to open it up and I have to get the picture. I have to do it by hand. In the picture frame, let me move this out of the way. In the picture frame, we've got the slider. We can do all of that with the slider. We can even rotate things. We can rotate the entire frame, but we can also, in here, we have another rotation where we can rotate the picture. So use picture frames. But what if what you want in terms of your shape is not rectangular, nor is it elliptical, which you've got here. So that would work just as well. But that's not your story. You want a completely different shape. Right, so let's get rid of this one. We'll leave those two there for the moment. You never know, might need them. These are your shapes. So you've got a rectangle, an ellipse. Even a rounded rectangle could be pretty amazing for this. So we could draw on a rounded rectangle and you could take it down. You could take it up to square. I never tend to use a standard rectangle just in case I want to change it. Or the client wants to change it, which is much more likely. The other benefit with something like this is, while it's still a shape, which it is, you know that this red dot changes the shape, But at the moment, it's changing all of them because of this option, which is single radius. You take that tick out of the box, you get 3 extra points. And now you can totally change how this looks. So we could make that square like that. That would enable us to put it sort of in a corner. You could, let's get another one. Now it's going to remember what you had before, which throws people at times. If you're thinking, oh no, I can't now manually marry these up. I want it back to being where they were all the same, and I can't eyeball that. They might be off. Just put a tick back in single radius, and you've now got 1 point and they all move together. So, shapes are really useful in terms of you may want to put images in them because they are a different shape. So triangles work well, and the hexagon thing. We'll have a polygon, I think, there. Right. So I've got some shapes. We already know that we can use them as is. We could drag this on and then drag it inside the shape and then start playing around with it. But it's not as good as if it was a picture frame. So what we really need is a picture frame that's that shape. And that is really straightforward. So what I'm going to do is delete that image out of the polygon. And for all 3 of these, I'm going to convert them into a picture frame. Right click, couldn't be easier. Down here you have your options to convert. You can convert it to curves. You can convert it to a text frame if you want, but you can also turn it into a picture frame. When you turn it into a picture frame, you get the cross in it. That indicates that this is a picture frame by comparison to these 2, which are just shapes. If you can't see that, you may well be in preview mode. One of the buttons they took off the toolbar, I know I can put it back, but then my interface would not look like everybody else's. But there is a shortcut key, which is Control and W. If you Control and W, the picture frames lose the cross that's in them. Now, in this circumstance, it doesn't make that much difference. You can still see from the layers that this has a different icon than the other 2, so you know that this is a picture frame, and helpfully it tells you it's a picture frame as well. Here's where it's a problem. If you had this shape on there and it didn't have a fill on it, so the shape is there but you didn't have a fill, now it looks like it's disappeared. It hasn't actually disappeared, but you can't see it because it's got no fill. So whether you are showing everything or not, it's got no fill on it, so you're left doing this. But even if that were a picture frame and it had the cross in it, so right click and convert it to a picture frame, now it's got the cross in it, this has no fill. This has a grey fill. When you go into preview mode, it totally disappears because it has no fill. So the only reason that we're seeing this as a picture frame is because it's got a fill. So I would suggest what I do is I make a document palette, and in it I put, in fact, let's do it. Let's not just talk about it, let's actually do it. So I'm going to add a global colour, and I call this picture frame. I don't tend to make it that dark. I would tend to make it a kind of sort of peachy colour, inoffensive, let's say inoffensive. And that adds it to my document palette, and it's a global colour. So what I would do with that is then apply that as a fill to these. At that point, it then doesn't matter because there is a fill in it. If I go into preview, I can still see all of the frames. So just something to be aware of. The reason that I do it as a global colour is that I can edit the global colour. So if the client doesn't like orange, got a religious opposition to orange, I can change it and it changes all of them. It's also a really good way when you're preparing templates for the, and I know that this potentially at the moment, baby books. Yeah, but they still tend to be pink and blue, don't they? No matter what. It's a really good way of changing that. You could create a template which you intend for weddings, so you make it pink. And then you decide to change it for like a corporate thing. This is a really quick way of doing that. So always good to know about global colours, how they work and how to use them. Right, so the last one that I need to change is this one. So I'm going in and convert to picture frame. And now, instead of dragging this image on and having to do all the work manually, I can just drag and drop it and it automatically puts it in the shape like that. So let's go and get one more and put that in there. Great. That is just going to save you so much time in terms of scaling it, moving it, the fact that it pops the image straight in there. You don't have to go and look for it. So many questions I get from people are, I added this image and it's vanished and it's just sat outside of the frame. So yes, you can use shapes and you may think that is the way to go because you want something custom. And it's a shame that the picture frame tool doesn't have a disclosure triangle on it that we can go and choose different shapes. But because you have the shapes, you can convert these to picture frames. And that is a good way to go. Right, I'm going to go and get a new page in this one. And we will head back into here. Right, creating custom picture frames. So what we did with that was just use the shapes that were there. But we've got a couple of options if you want something completely custom. Now, this could be something like, if you think about Apple's branding, they maybe want to put something in an apple, or Nike with their tick. So it's often used for shapes that are logos, but you can take it any way you like with that. Right, so, I can move some of this stuff on the other screen now, which will be a blessed relief. I've got all kinds of things open here. Right, okay, so you could draw a completely custom frame. So I'm using the pen tool, and I know a lot of people don't like the pen tool, but all you have to do is click, leave the mouse, click, move, click. So I'm just clicking and releasing, and I'm making the most hideous shape. But this is one way to use the pen tool. You can get more clever with the pen tool, but let's leave it like this for the moment and show you. I'll take that up to there and then back to there to close it. I now have a completely custom shape. We already know with a shape that if I right click on it, I can convert it to a picture frame. And then if I drag and drop an image into it, what do we have this time? Pretty flowers. Let's put that one in. Right. We have a picture frame. This remains editable. So, a little bit of an aside here, I suspect, into the pen tool. But when you use the pen tool, it creates a shape and it does it based on nodes. So in here, we've got a node at each point that we clicked. Now, it's not the best shape ever, but never mind, it'll do for demonstration purposes. We also have a node tool. So if I activate the node tool, and this works exactly the same in the vector studio, now each node is square. And you can see each node here has a square on it and it's editable. I can move it. So if I think you've made a bit of a mess of that, let's at least have it square and then some teeth at the bottom. I can do that. And I can use this to work around the flowers. So if I want to see more of the flowers but have the shapes in there, I can do that. Another thing I can do, you're not limited to moving one node at a time. The selected node is blue. If you hold down the Shift key, and that is Mac and Windows, you can select all 4 of those at the bottom, or however many you like. With them selected, you can move all of them together. I'm not saying that you would ever want a shape like this. It's a demo. But for you, whatever you're working around, that is how you could do it. And it remains a picture frame. You go back to the Move tool, you still have in here the ability to zoom the image. You still have the ability to move the image. Completely up to you what you do with that. So that is making it by drawing it out. But it doesn't stop there. So I'm going to add another page. It could be that you choose a shape. So I think I used, was it a triangle? No, it was this trapezoid thing. Right. So this is starting to look a little bit like a logo, shape for a logo. Right. Now, I don't really want to draw this because obviously it's mathematically sound at the moment. But this company's logo has an arrow on it coming out of either side. I know that's ludicrous, but never mind. Right, so up to my shapes, I do have an arrow tool, which is here. And with that, I can draw out an arrow. And I've got all the red handles that enable me to customize it in any way I choose. So like that. I can make it skinnier. I can make it wider. I can even move these points. So I could make that flat at one end. You'll notice as I'm dragging it back, I'm getting a red line and a green line. That's because I've got snapping turned on. I always have snapping turned on. I have virtually all the snapping turned on. It just makes editing a little bit easier. So with my shape here, their logo looks like that. Now that's going to need to be a little bit wider, so we'll make it as wide as that. Right, but this at the moment is two completely separate shapes. Yes, I could convert each one of them into being a picture frame, but it would give me two picture frames. So before you even think about picture frames, and I'm thinking with this fill, hopefully it's using that one. I'll do that so we can all see it a little bit better. Right, so we have our arrow shape and we have the shape behind it. Select one or other of them, hold the Shift key down and select the second. Another way to do that is to use the layers. So you can select by using the layers. With them selected, now bear in mind at the moment I'm in the layout studio. Purely for speed, I'm going to go across to the vector studio where I have instant access to my Boolean operations. Now, my Boolean operations allow me to work on shapes, and I want these two shapes to be a single shape. So that is an add operation. Once I've clicked that, I've now got a shape. It's saying polyline, and that is a single shape. I'm going to switch back to layout view and right click and convert to picture frame. That puts the cross in it, and I can then go and get some stock imagery and put that in there. We got anything that would work reasonably well with that? Something wide. Let's have the wide one again. Let's drag that on, and it fills the whole space. You could in here go even further. So you could use a technique we used before to edit. So if I realise looking at this, yeah, it's not tall enough. Another way to select multiple points is to draw around them with the node tool active. And then you can edit this. You can change that shape. So I'm pulling it up with the Shift key held down, and it makes it a bit taller here. But I could use any of these. If I wanted that to stretch out and that to stretch out, you can do. So this started as two separate Affinity shapes that I then merged together to create a single shape, but then I can use the node tool to edit that single shape. So you can mix and match your techniques. But that is what we have with that. Do we have any questions that are relevant at this point, Mike? Not relevant at this point. Okay, well, we'll come back to... Oh, did I? Right, okay. Well, we'll discuss that again at the end. Mike's saying a question was asked and I'd already answered it. Right, okay. So that was creating custom frames with the pen tool and the Boolean operations. Now, your Boolean operations are available from the menu, even if you're in the layout studio. It's just that they're there in front of your face in the vector studio. So I do switch just for speed there. Right, so we've got that one. We will save that file. I'm saving as I'm going this week, if you're wondering why. Because last week, when I'd finished my session, none of my files would save. Long story. Long, painful story. Right, okay. Oh, I didn't move to that, did I? Right, here we go. So, next thing to think about. Wrapping around your images. So, I don't think we looked at this at all last week, so I'll be looking at it in terms of basic wrapping and then taking that wrapping a little bit further. So let's go and have a look at advanced wrapping, for which I have some files. So advanced wrapping. Right, I'm going to start off with this one. which is some text about penguins. You're wondering. I just like penguins. Right, so it's some text about penguins. It's all been styled up. There are, at the moment, 2 pages of content, but there's also 2 additional pages. Right, that is just something to think about when you're setting it up, because the text from this frame, you see the blue line, is linking to this frame. But this frame is linking to this blank frame, and that in turn is linking to the one on the 4th page. That's important when you start thinking about wrapping, because your text will disappear if you do not have enough frames for it to flow into. So I've already set that up, and that's why. Now, I have an image of a penguin. So let me show you the image of the penguin. There's the penguin. He's cute, isn't he? Right, I'm going to drag and drop that penguin in. Now, I have 3 copies of this image. So just to show you here, I've got the PNG, I have a TIFF, and I have a JPEG. They are all the same penguin. I'm going to start off with this PNG. Now, you know that I would normally put a picture frame in there. And if I did, I could put wrapping around the picture frame. But I'm going to show you a different thing, and I'll explain why, which is I'm going to drag and drop the penguin on. And obviously the penguin sits on top of the text. And as I move him round, the penguin moves, but the text is going behind the penguin. Right, so if I put my penguin here, if I want to put some wrap on that, we have text wrap options, which are in the text wrap, and I want to show the text wrap settings. Now, I already have that open, so that's where I would go for it. There it is. And the reason that the text is going behind the penguin is because there's no wrap on the penguin. Right. I know you may be thinking, well, it's text wrap, so it should go on the text. No, it should go on the penguin. So if I put a tight wrap on the penguin, it wraps tightly around the penguin. So now the text, as I move this, the text is keeping out of the way of the penguin. It's a little bit too close, particularly on the right-hand side. You have the option to change the distance from the text. So you could do this, and the text would push further away from the penguin. Not bad, but at the moment, I'm going to leave that set to 0 to show you something. This text on the right-hand side it's not got enough space to breathe, so it shouldn't really be there. So one thing I could do with that is use this wrap too, and at the moment it's set to both sides. But what you can say is wrap only on the largest side. So the larger side is on the left, and that would take the text away from the right. What you can then do, if it is the text that's left that is still a little bit too close, then you can use your distance from the text, and that would push it a little bit further away on the left-hand side. But that's interesting, isn't it? Because if you look at the wrap style, it's set to tight, and it worked. It just worked. Interesting. That's because it's a PNG and the image has transparency. Notice that image is not in a picture frame. It could be, but it doesn't need to be if it's an image like that and you just want to wrap the text around it. So it will work in a picture frame, but it doesn't need to be in a picture frame. So that is what happens with the PNG. So let's put him towards the top, out of the way, and let's get another one. So this time I'm adding a TIFF. So drag and drop the TIFF in, same scenario. You can see that the text is going behind him. So let's put him at the bottom. And you just do exactly the same. So you would apply tight to it. I think it makes sense to set it to the largest size. Over that side, I will get that right in the end, largest side. Right. And then you can change this if you need to just move it a bit. Again, there is no picture frame on that. Notice what's happened here, and that's why I did it. My text is flowing onto the next page now. It's gone on to page 3. Right, let's go to page 2 and let's add another image. So this time it's my third copy of my penguin. drag and drop the penguin on there. There's the penguin. We'll put him down there, I think. And we will apply a tight wrap to that. Oh dear. Right, we've got no wrap applied to it, but have we? No. Well, we have, but it's wrapping around the box of the image, not the actual penguin. And that is because this penguin is not transparent. So if we look at the PNG penguin, he is transparent. The TIFF penguin is also transparent. But if we look at the JPEG, JPEG does not support transparency, so we've got the drop shadow, but we've got white background. Right, okay, what can we do about that? Now, we still, at this stage, it's not in a picture frame at this stage. And we do have it wrapped round as tight, it's just not working properly. But we have an option where we can edit the wrap points. So back up to text and down to text wrap, and you've got this edit wrap outline option. So let's enable that. Doesn't look like much has changed, but it has. These corner points are now square. So if we look at each of them, we've got 4 corner points and they're square. Right, and it's taken me into the node tool. Now, I can move this now. And as I move that, you can see the text wrapping around it. Obviously, we don't want it to go further out. We want it to be closer to the penguin. Now, you've got a couple of options with this penguin. One option would be, if you wanted to wrap it like I wrapped the PNG and the TIFF, is convert it. Do a conversion of the image and then take away the background. That's one option. But seeing as though you can do it in here, it might be something that you don't actually need to do. That's just more work that you don't need to do. So, as well as pulling it out, I can take it nearer. But notice that as I do that, it's cutting off his little flipper thing here. So I'd need to add extra points or do something different. So I'm going to show you from what we had, which was about there. You double click that, it changes the node type so I can curve it around his head. So I'm doing the same with that, double click and curve. It's still going through the flippers at the moment, but it won't be in a minute. Right, so I'm going to add some extra points here. Now I clicked inadvertently there and it's taken me out. So let me get back into my editing the wrap outline. Right, okay. So I'm going to click on there. That should add a point that I can then curve in. And obviously at this point, I want to curve it out round there. And I use these handles to change this. And I can add as many points as I need, so I can make it much tighter. This right-hand side, I'm not really going to need to worry about because I don't want any text on it anyway. But on the basis that I might move this somewhere else later, I will take the time and add the extra points so I can go round his little flipper. Like that. And I would probably move that down a bit. There we go. Right, so that's drawn round him okay. Excellent. Now, let's click back on him. He does have a wrap style on him. He is at the moment wrapping to both sides with no distance from the text, which doesn't explain why the text is still going behind him, which it is. If we move this, you can see that it is going behind him. What's going on there? Well, we've changed the wrap and the text is wrapping to the wrap that we have created, the custom wrap. The reason we're not seeing it is it's going behind the white pixels of the PNG, of the JPEG. Those white pixels are going to sit on top of the text, irrespective of what we've done with the wrap. All we need to do is move him behind the text, and that solves the problem. The white pixels are now behind the text. Now, we do need to make a bit of a change here. And the change we need to make is we've got text on the right because we didn't say largest side. Got it right that time. Right, if we do that, that JPEG is now behaving in the same way as a PNG and a TIFF with transparency behave without us having to add the transparency to it. So you can do that with it. Now that is one way of treating wrap with transparency and with images. But that is just one way of doing that. So I will save that, close that, and go into the next example. So this one is a slightly different behaviour that we want. So what we have here, move that out the way for the moment. This could be a page in your photo book. You could have a beautiful picture of the London Eye, and I'm not sure if that's Parliament or not. I've no idea where that is at the moment. But this is the London Eye, and this is our text. And it's not quite looking perfect at the bottom because it's going into the building. So what I could do with is having this wrapping around the eye, giving us a little bit more room. Right. Select the image, not the text, the image. Now what I will do on here, in fact, we'll do this bit first. Right. What I will do on here is exactly what we did with the penguin. And this should explain better why it didn't just nuke those white pixels, why it just didn't delete them, right? Because you don't want any part of this image missing. You just want to change how the text is interacting with it. Right. So what we need to do with this is edit the points again. So back to text, text wrap, edit the text wrap outline. Now, the text disappears. It's still there, but we are now in edit mode. And just like we did with the penguin, you can see what happens as I bring this back. So I want this to be over here. This side doesn't really matter that much. I wouldn't want text on there anyway. Obviously here, I probably do. Now you can see it's looking a bit square and we don't want the text going into it like this. But we know we can double click and it will round that off. And then using the handles here, we can manipulate this to go around the eye. So I would have this like that. I'd move that a little bit nearer. You don't want it too close. And you can use these handles to tweak how close it actually is. And probably, I mean, I could get away with that, but it would probably be better to add an extra point here and go around it there as well. So I've created a perfect curve around that. But nothing changed over here, did it? Now, that's because if you look at the text frame itself is not touching, it's not close enough over here for that to work. But we need to make sure it's enabled first, and that needs to be on this shape. So I'm going to select neither at the moment, move my text wrap panel on, and show you there's nothing on here because we have nothing selected. This does not need the wrap applied to it, but if we click on the image, you can see we already have a tight text wrap on it. So that's set up and that's correct. We even have 2 millimeters on the right hand side. So why is it not wrapping? Well, it's not wrapping because we didn't pull this text far enough. We do that, it wraps around it. And that means that my text now finishes on this dark sky background and I can read it. But not only can I read it, I think it actually looks a lot better wrapping around the eye. Now, you may have images that have negative space on them. If I turn this off, you can see that that is negative space. If this was a magazine article, that is where you would probably put the text of the title. So, on that basis, it's a great place to wrap around. So make sure that your wrap leaves you this space to use. So if I turn the text back on, you can see we can move it and it would be square. But if we make it over here, it's avoiding the eye. And that is how you would do that. So I'm sure you've got some images with negative spacing that would work really well for. Okay, so I'm looking now. Oh, the place panel. The place panel is fabulous. Right, let's come out of that and the place panel. As I said, don't go looking for the place panel. You won't find it. It automatically appears. But we need to think about other things before we think about the place panel. So let's go and have a look at that. I have a document I'll use for this, but then I will show you Hang on, wrong one. That's the appearance. Place panel. Place panel. So I'm opening this up. This is a file that's got some space in it that I want to fill with images. So just so you've seen the whole file, we'll be coming back to this file. It's a wedding book thing, but we have some spaces. So we have in there 18 frames that we want to put pictures in. And yes, you could do it one at a time. That way madness lies. But you could drag and drop into there. Now, you may have, so let me open up Eagle. Eagle is an asset management application similar to Adobe Bridge. And I have my images in there. And I can see them. It's a great view. I can see all of the metadata, the whole works. And usually, if I'm adding 2 or 3 images, I'll add them from here. But if I do that, I have to add them one at a time. So let me show you what that looks like. That I just drag from Bridge and I drop and it puts the image in the frame. But I would have to do it 18 times. So there are times that I don't want to do that. So instead of having them in Bridge, I have 18 images in my Finder. And there they are. So just to show you what we've got, they are just 18 random images that I picked out of Eagle and dragged them into my Finder. Why on earth did I do that? Well, that is because we have the option to place files. So this is my data. We're at the place panel and there are my images. So this would be virtually the same as dragging and dropping them if I chose one. And I have an application that gives me a little preview at the bottom. But I know I want all of these images placed. So I clicked on the first one, held the, was it Shift or Command? Shift key down and selected all of them. And then clicked on Open. Right, now because I've told this file I want to embed the images, this annoys me. It second guesses me every time. What it's saying is, there's a lot of files in this file. There's a lot of images that you've placed in this file. Are you sure you still want to embed them? I wish I could stop that. Right, now it's placing them. Right, now place means it's opened up the place panel, a new panel. And in it, it has put the images like this. If I move, so I've got the first one here. If I move over here, you can see that it gives me a preview of what that would look like with that image placed in that frame. My cursor has changed to a rather large arrow and a sort of circle drop thing. And what it's saying is if you click, it will drop it in there. So let's say that that one would look good over there. Straight away, it's moved on to the second image. Now, what if I don't want to place that image at the moment? What if I want to place that image? That will enable me to place that image. So let's put that there. Then it goes back to the top. So you can choose what order you place these images. Let's put that one at the bottom. Or you can leave it and just place them in the order that it offers you. Let's put that one at the top, I think. But it's way faster than drag, drop, drag, drop, drag, drop. It's way faster than doing it individually. So let's just do the rest by clicking and adding them. So we'll just click, click, click. If these were in the right order, whoa, how fast is that? So that is the place panel. You're placing them into standard picture frames. So if we look at that one, and the one up there that's not quite right, you've got all of the options. So we can bring this up a bit. And this one, this definitely needs to move up a bit, doesn't it? And we've got the scope to do that because you can see how much of the image is there. So then it's just a matter of tweaking. Now, you've also got standard picture frames, remember? So we can zoom and then move that. So it looks absolutely perfect. Every feature that you had available, you still have available. It's much faster to get the initial addition of the photos to your picture frames. So that is the place panel. And it appears when you go to File, Place, and choose multiple files in here. But you do need to choose the multiple files in there. You can place individually. You can go file place and then place it, and then go file place and place it. Why would you do that 18 times when you've got the place panel? That is much, much faster when it comes to working with images like that. Okay. Now, the next one was the appearances panel, wasn't it? So I will save that. Right, appearances panel. This was an addition, so it's not been there that long. It was added to Affinity Designer first. And if you wanted to use this inside Affinity Publisher, you'd need to use the Studio Link feature. But now the application is one complete application, you get to use the appearance panel without any additional magic required. So let's go and have a look at that. I have a file to use with this. So appearance panel. Right. So let's say that what I want to do with this is add myself a picture frame over here and another picture frame over here, which I'll do shortly. Right. It remembers the last one, which is why it's got yellow around it, which isn't a good look. So let's turn that off. So we have a standard picture frame. Right, with that selected, you bring up your appearance panel. You will find that somewhere down here in one of these. Go on, let me have a look. Appearance, appearance, appearance. This is why I surf menus. It must be vector. There you go, vector appearance. Right, with it showing, this is what it looks like. Now, it's saying that, there's no fill on it, there's no stroke on it. So let's edit this stroke. Now, there's two ways to do that. This one will change if you use the stroke panel. So it's saying 2 points, and that is what we've got in here. But in the colours, it's got no colour on it. So that's why we're not seeing it. So I'll make this, we will use the colours. We'll just use black. We'll put a black background on it. Right. So we've done that with the swatches and the stroke, and the knock-on implication is that it's added it into the appearance. And you can edit it from either one of those places. Now, 2 points, not wide enough for what we want. We want a really big and offensive background border on this. So we'll make it 12. Good grief. Whatever I put in there, we will not do that. Right, 12. Right, this is the magic that the appearance panel lets you do. Imagine that you wanted a black border on it, but you also wanted a white border on it. Now, you can obviously do that by adding a shape, giving that shape, so I'm going back to doing it in here now. So I wouldn't want it anything like that thick, that'll do. And in here, making that white. Then what you would do is take this shape and put it over the top of that shape and lose the grey fill. Now you have a composite border with black at the back and white at the front. And that is how you would have to have done that. You do not have to do that anymore. That's what the appearance panel is for. Right, so it has a stroke of 12 points that's black. Let's add a second stroke to it. This one is transparent and at 0. So the first thing to do, it needs to be more than 0. So let's take that up like that. We've now got 2.5. And in here, we'll make that white like that. But it could be any colour. You could make it any colour, but let's save that for the next one. Right, so what you do is, to make sure that you can see this, is you start off with the widest border at the back, so the lower in the stacking order. And then you work upwards with the smaller ones. So we can even turn these off. There's the black at the back, there's the white on top of it. We can do that again and add another one. And this time we'll go for something like 4. And we will choose a colour for it of red, so we can see it's starting to look like a United thing, this. Right, now we've got 3. 12 at the back, that's black. 8, that's white in the middle. And then the 4 point that is on the top of it. So let's have a look at that. That is what that looks like. Now, you don't want to have to do this the long-winded way, which would be if I were to add another photo frame over here, another picture frame, right, what it would do is retain the last stroke that I applied, which is the 4 points in red. But the black's missing and so is the white. So great, but no t-shirt. Right, so that's not really what we want. But we still have this available, which is formatted correctly. So one way is to go to Edit and Copy, and then go to the destination frame and say Edit and Paste. But we're not going to paste the frame. We're going to paste the style on it. And now they would match. That's one option. Right, let's move that up. We're now going to add another one to it. So I'll put that on here. Again, it's defaulted to the last single stroke that we put on, which was the 4 points in red. Another way to work. You have text styles. I've talked about text styles endlessly. But you also have object styles in the styles panel. These are object styles. These are just some demo ones that I've got, so you can see what that does. Puts gold in it, right? But that's not what we want for this. With that selected, and my disclosure up here, I'm going to add a new style from the selection. That adds me a style. And I can then apply 3 strokes to this shape just by applying that style. And it wouldn't matter if that was different. So we could put a circular one on there. So let's just put that over there like that. And we can apply it to that. That is one option. You may choose to do it a different way. So first of all, we've got that option where we can copy the entire shape, but apply only the style from it. We've got the second option that you could make a style in here for it. If this is something you're going to be doing a lot, then what you could do is get one of these that's borderline perfect for you. So let's say that I use 50 by 40 a lot. Right, with that selected, I could go to my assets over here, and I could create an asset of it. So with it selected, drop down, I would do another select. Hang on, it's from the burger menu. Add from selection to the burger menu. This would mean I can just create that by dragging and dropping it on. If I need it to be a different size, I can do that. I actually do this for real in MacBytes, that I have a 1 column. So this one's going to be twice as wide, a 1 column and a 2 column frame. So that is for real. That's used every week. MacBytes After Hours. But this is my demo. So I've just created that there, and I can do it by dragging and dropping it on. Right, again, so far, so good. Now, your issue becomes, let's say that they don't like the red. And so it needs to be a different colour. Well, that's simple enough. We go up to here and we'll choose a different colour. So maybe they're a blue. Right, that is only going to change 1 frame. But you're saying, but you had a style. I did indeed have a style. Object styles do not automatically update. What options did I have? Well, what should I have done? Well, I would be able to update all of these, wouldn't I, if I'd used a global colour? That would work. But there is another way to do it as well. So let's get rid of this blue one, right, and get back to this one. And I'm going back to my vector, and I have symbols, and I could create a symbol. So with it selected, I create a symbol, and then I can drag this on. So that's a symbol. Right, these obviously aren't symbols at this point, right? Only the ones I've created as symbols are symbols, these two here. Both of these are symbols. They've got the stripe down them. They've got the icon. When we open it up, you can see the picture frame inside. That is a symbol. We will drag a couple more of these on. So there's another one. Right. And then in here, if I go into this, so I'm editing the bottom one, I go into there and I make that blue, they all change because they are a symbol. So there's lots of ways of achieving it, but it might not be the way that you think. You would think these styles could update, and maybe one day they will. If you're coming from InDesign, I know your styles update. Your object styles update. They don't in Affinity. It's as simple as that. The global color is probably the easiest way to make them update automatically. It's the way I would use. Yes, you can create symbols, but symbols get issues down the line potentially with symbols. But global colors are your friend. So that is showing you the appearance panel that we didn't used to have available in Publisher unless we use Studio Link. So it did work. Once it had been added, it did work, but it wasn't immediately available without Studio Link. Right, okay, so that was the appearance panel. What do we have next? Tables of contents. Now, this is not an all you need to know about tables of contents. I've talked about table of contents for about 3 hours. This is very simple, but it is going to move on beyond a simple table of contents to a much more advanced table of contents. But first of all, you need to know what a table of contents looks like and how to create one. So this is the short version of a table of contents. Right, I have a file. It is another copy of the file that we already had. Right, but this one is tables of contents and cross-reference tables of contents. So we have a page that says contents and we have a frame to put the table of contents in. These are the pages that we have. And this is going to work because it's been designed correctly. And what I mean by that is these headings of the wedding, the groom, the bride, the engagement, these are headings. Text styles, they are heading 1 styles. If I'd just formatted that and they weren't heading styles, then what I'm about to do wouldn't work. So if you try doing it and you think that didn't work, make sure that you have this text with a text style on it. And then when you move into the table of contents panel, it doesn't matter, they don't have to be called heading, they can be called cabbages if you like, but you need to make sure that you're pulling in or referencing the correct text style in your table of contents. So this is where I want my table of contents. And you have multiple ways of inserting a table of contents, but this is the table of contents panel. This is one way of doing it. So with my insertion point in that text frame, I can click the Add option. And it adds a table of contents. Beautifully formatted, exactly what I need. That's exactly what I need. Now, as I said, it worked because the text headings were formatted as headings with a text style. And how the table of contents knows what text to pull in is based on this bottom half of the panel. So it's everything down here, which is the style name. And you can see that there is tick next to heading 1 and a tick next to heading 2, which is saying include those styles in this table of contents. The rest of this is how come I can talk about it for 3 hours, because it all needs to be explained. But for a very simple table of contents, that is all you need to know. So that is our simple table of contents. Where are we heading next? An image-based table of contents. Now, I've chosen to use this in a photo book. It works just as well, if not even better, for magazines. But given that a photo book is a visual thing, it doesn't really make much sense to have a text-based table of contents. I mean, yes, if you're giving it to the bride's mother, then the bride's mother's going to want to look at the bride, and the groom's mother's going to want to look at the groom. So a text-based table of contents would be enough, but for other people who aren't particularly on one side or the other, they may want to see an image in a thumbnail format and then be taken to that page. And that is what we're going to create. So I will show you the finished thing. That was the text-based one on the left-hand side. I'm going to create the clever one on the right-hand side here. This is what this is going to look like when it's finished. So I have a complete one here. Or did I? Oh, yes, I did. I did. There we go. Now, when I say complete, give or take, obviously the numbers aren't there, but that is what I need to create. So I'm trying to replicate that. So I'm going to need some standard picture frames. These are only standard picture frames. And I'm going to put them up there. There were 3 of them. So let's put those in. And that's the photo part actually already done. So I am going to need to remember which pictures were which. So I know it's just married at the bottom. So I'm going to get those from Eagle. Rather, I don't need to place these. There's only 4 of them, and I know what I want where. So it's easier for me to just drag and drop them in from Eagle. So that's what I'm doing. I do just need to remember what they were. So I've got the engagement photo. Where's that gone? That's the one. That one was going up there. So drag and drop from Eagle. That next one was roses and pearls, I think. So need the roses and the pearls. So I'm looking for there they are. So let's put that one in there. Got no recollection what the last one was. Oh, it was the 2 of them with wine glasses. Let's go and find the 2 of them with wine glasses. I've got the 2 of them with flowers. Let's bring it on so you can see it as well. Shout out if you see it. Wine glasses. Bride and groom. Wine glasses. I don't see that. Did I use an image that I didn't then put in Eagle? You know what? Flowers will do just as well. Let's take this one. Right. We've swapped the wine glasses for the flowers and put that in there. Right. You can, because these are standard picture frames, do whatever you need to do in terms of zooming in, moving, whatever. But that is good enough for what we've got. Now, the next thing we need is a text frame. So I'm adding a text frame. It's tiny. In fact, I do believe it was 8mm square. So that was my text frame. And I'm going to put that over there. Now, the last time I made a text frame, it had that background on it. It's got no stroke on it. Oh, has it? Let's have a look. Do you have a stroke on it? No, it doesn't look like it. It's got that fill on it because that's the fill I used last time, which was clearly a very odd grey. So I'm going to go to that and make that a white fill. Hopefully is that fill that as white? No, I know where this is coming from. Right, it's the background of a text frame. So it's coming from here. So I need that to be white in there. So this is how I format my text frame. So with my text frame selected, that's what I've got formatted in there. That looks like it's gone grey again. This will be the death of me, I swear it will. It'll do. Whatever it is. I'm now changing the colour, but it'll do. Right. I then need some text in there. So I'm just going to put an X in it. Now, you can see here that this is saying I've got an overflow. So I don't want to hook it up to anything else, but I could do with seeing it. Ah, right. It's because it's too big. It's also the wrong font. Also looks like it's at the back, but we'll have this right. Yeah, we will. So for a start, I want the X to be pink. So let's make it so we can see it. It needs to be a different font because that's far too big and chunky. So for this, I'd use Trajan and then make it smaller than 40. So possibly 30, possibly less. Let's try 20. Right. So we have that in there. Do we want it bold? Don't think we need it bold. Doesn't really matter. Okay. What have you done here? I think it's got a different format there. I think it's gone strange. But there's what's going to be the page number. But it isn't centered in that text frame. But we have options here to center the text horizontally and vertically. So that puts it in the middle of there. So that is going to be, we want one of those over the corners of each image. Which one doesn't matter, completely up to you. So I'm going to hold my option key down and drag. I'll put that in the bottom one. We'll make that one, come on, in the top one there. And then put one for the bottom one. And if you want this one, because the image is bigger, to be bigger, you could do that. They don't all need to be the same. Now, what we need to do now is not concern ourselves with the table of contents panel. This is not a table of contents in that way. It's going to be a table of contents. For us, it's going to be a pretty table of contents, but we're going to have to build it a totally different way. So I'm going to go here and double click that and delete. So my insertion point is there, and it's ready to receive the page number that is the engagement. Right, and how I'm going to do that is use a feature called a cross-reference, which from memory is down here. Now, when I say from memory, I always use menu surfing in Raycast. It's faster. But this is how you would do it. So I'm going to say insert a cross-reference. That will bring up my cross-reference panel. Now, in here, that will default to paragraph. It just does. Okay, and I'm going to do one thing in here because I'm going to do it manually. So let me delete that because I demoed this the other night. So everything's working at the moment and you need to see it from the point that you would see when you open this dialog. Right, so you can insert a cross-reference by opening this dialog box. If you want to see your cross-references, there's another way to do it, which is to open up the cross-reference panel, which is this one here. So it's opened it off the screen, which is there. So this would enable you to view your cross-references. So we're going to leave that sat there. And as we start working, it will populate. But we can also add from that panel, and it brings up the same insert cross-reference dialog box. Right, it wants to link to text in paragraphs, and it lists all of the paragraphs. And you can see in here, we've got all kinds of stuff going on. I only want to see the heading ones. That's what I want to link to. So I can go into here and filter for the heading ones, and there they are. I can even filter if I've got 300 pages here and I'm looking for like the bride. I could start typing the bride and it would filter what is in that middle window. So this bit here is where you're going to choose what you're linking to. And in this case, it's not the bride, it's the engagement. So let's do the engagement. Select that. Then we move down to the next bit in here. Now, there are presets for cross-references. Cross-references can be used within the body of text, in which case you might want the paragraph body and then some text that says on page and then a page number. You might want it to say page and then the page number. But I've only got a tiny little window here and all I want to see is the page number. Now, in here, you get to choose what this looks like. So from your disclosure triangle there, you can choose various elements of metadata. And what I want is just the page number. That's it. Now, if you wanted the page number, but with fancy little twirls after it, you can put the fancy little twirls in here. Then it would have fancy twirls either side of the page number. I don't. I just want the page number. But I don't want to have to set that every time I do it either. So I can create a preset. We have 2 presets already. That's what it ships with. So if I go in here and choose to create a preset, this one would just be page number. But it's not text, it's going to be automated. So I would call this, I would put angle brackets in and then put the name of the field inside the angle brackets. And then I'm not second guessing what this is. If you want to be more descriptive, that's up to you. So OK on that. And that is an optional step. You can then choose a style for this if you want. And it will show you, down here, I've got a cross-reference style. It will show you the styles you have available. We'll just leave it at the moment and OK. And it will put in page 4. Right, let's go and have a look. Was page 4 the engagement? Yes, it was. And there's page 4, the engagement. So all we need to do back in here is rinse and repeat. And we have a very visual table of contents. So I'm selecting the text, deleting that X placeholder. It was only there as a placeholder. Then I'm going back to my cross-reference and click Add. It remembers what you had set before. Now notice in here, this does annoy me, it's alphabetical. Crying out loud. But it's alphabetical. You can't do anything about that. But it does give you the page number. So this is the bride. I happen to know that. So that would be on page 6. So let's OK that. That puts page 6 in. And this one here, go back and put another one in. So we've done the bride. The thing is, this is the groom. And the last one we've got is the wedding. So get rid of that and put in there the wedding. So once you've set it up for that initial one, and clearly my text is too big. Right, I need to select that and make it a little bit smaller to fit that one. Or, as I said, because the image is bigger, another option I'd have, so I'm going to undo that, is to actually just make that bigger. I could do that, and I could even make this bigger because I've got the space to do it if I want. So all of this is customizable in any way you want. Right, so that is our index, our table of contents, but a very visual table of contents. Nothing to stop you having both. So you could have your detail over here, but if you want to showcase certain images, then that is a good way to do it. Right, but does it work? Obviously, with this, it's all very well having it there. And if it's a printed book, when I say work, well, do their eyes work? They just need to see page 8 and then flip to page 8. But what if you were producing this digitally? So I'm going to lose our cross-reference window and just produce this. So I'm saving it first. I'm going to export it. I'm not going to concern myself with anything that may or may not be wrong with it. And I do want the links to work. So I'll do a high quality thing. I know there's lots of images in there, but let it strut its stuff while it's thinking about it. That seemed alarmingly fast. Alarmingly fast. Let me just check what did you produce? What did you do? Right. Oh no, it's doing weirdness over here. Right. Let me get back in here. What did it do? Let's have a look. Current spread. I knew you were up to mischief. Right, I need all the spreads. Right, it shouldn't be that fast. That's how I knew it was being naughty. So let's replace that. All right, it's going to take a little bit of time. Now, this is because I'm producing it to high quality. I know I could produce it to a much lower quality. But I also know that I have PDF Optim to change my quality later and I get a better result. So that's why I do it. So in my Finder, I should now have a PDF. There's my PDF. So let's open up that PDF and we've got our cover and we have our spreads. It's amazing, doesn't it? Right, in here, these are clickable. So my mouse pointer's changing to a hand. If I want to go to page 8, I can. So they're working. And these are my cross-references, and these are also working. And the bit that it puts at the top is the bit that you have linked to. So on here, it would be the bride at the very, very top. Going back here, this would be the groom, and that would be at the top. So if you want to produce a digital photo book with hyperlinks, you can do. So you've got the best of all worlds there. That would work if it was printed, and it would also work if it was digital. Right, let me have a look at the size of that file. That file is 20 meg. Right, what I'm going to do with it, because it will overwrite it, I will copy and paste that. So I've got a copy of it. This is my original. Obviously, I have my original Affinity file, but I'm just going to show you that, and I've shown you this many, many times, but people still get giddy with it. Right, I'm going to open that file with an application that is cross-platform called PDF Optim. If I want to email this to somebody, I don't want to be sending them 20 meg. This is the compressed version. I can scroll through my document to make sure it doesn't look appalling. I can also zoom in. So if we look at this by zooming in, let's move across here. You can see there will be a difference in quality, but it's not really noticeable. And it's 10 times smaller. You would have compressed it by 88%. So I will say, yep, we'll export that. That's PDF Optim. Michael, find the link, even though I didn't give it to him, because he's good like that. So what we have here is the original at 20.5 meg, and this one at 2.4. We open this one. It looks pretty much the same. And it works exactly the same. And it's much, much smaller. So it would be a good way to produce a proof version of it, a draft copy of it, and get approval of it before you create the big one. Right, so that was advanced tables of contents. We only have 2 more bits to go. You'll be glad to hear. Right. The next bit that I'm going to do is converting content pages to master pages. So last week we created lots of layouts, and I did say if I were doing this for real, they would be master pages. But I did it that way for a couple of reasons. One, some people won't know about master pages, and I'm not inclined to stop and start trying to explain that at that point. Right, so we'll just make a layout. But the other reason is if you download templates from the internet, templates in massive air quotes, they're not templates. They're files. They are either IDML files or they are Affinity files. And the pages that are in there are all content pages. There are no master pages. Or if there are master pages, they're not master pages of the layouts. That's just something that I've noticed. So there's going to be 2 steps involved to creating what you need to create to make repurposing easy. Step 1 is to convert your content pages to master pages. And step 2 is then to create a native template. So this is step 1. So we will go in here and get rid of that. Okay, yep, you can save that. And why did you close down? Right, so I'm going to open a file that I've used for a good few years. This does have some master pages in it, but it's got way more content pages in it that don't actually have content in. They are just variations of a layout. Right, so I'm going to show you the master pages. We have a blank master page, and then I have some coloured pages. And the idea with how this template was built was if I wanted to have a page with, let's have a look what we've got here. We've got some with text on. That'll do, that one. Right, where that is, it's got an image here and it's got some space either side for text on it. But it's pretty plain, isn't it? But there's nothing to stop me with my master pages dragging these down. That's the wrong page. I put it on the wrong page. There we go. So now it has a background on it. So that was what I did with these. And if you're wondering what primary 1, primary 2 and the accent colours are, guess what? There's a global palette, there's a document palette with global colours in here. So even though I have, let's put that on another page so we can see it. Let's do this one here. Right, this is the benefit of doing it this way. I've used a master page to make 2 pages green in the background. But then I realise I need to change that colour. Right, I could just change the master page, that would work. But would it work if I'd got text on these pages and that was green as well? No, it wouldn't. So this is accent 3. I edit it. Everything changes. It does take a fraction of a second for the thumbnails to update, but everything changes. So that's why it was built this way. But to get back to what we were talking about, so I'll get rid of that. So we've got just layouts. Right. So we do have some master pages in here, but what we don't have is master pages for layouts. We have master pages for applying background colours. So let's pick a couple of these that's probably worth our while, like this one. If you want to have multiple copies of that page in your photo book, you have a copy of it here, but you only have 1 copy. These are, you're not going to leave in this file. If you've not used this one, you're not going to leave it in there. You're going to delete it. Then you're going to think to yourself, oh no, I need that layout back. So that's why I think it is ridiculous the way that people provide templates. They're not templates. So I can imagine you'd go into it, you'd create your photo book. Amazing. And now you need another one. And it's like, well, where are those layouts? That's why all of these layouts would be better as master pages. So we're going to take this one, because there's lots of them, and we'll take this one with the captions on. So how do we make master pages of them? Well, we go to the master pages and we add a master page. And it is a good idea to label these with what they are. So that one is going to be 32 images. So I'll put 32 images. Then I know exactly what it is. It's going to be a layout. It's not page numbers. It's not a background colour, it's layout. You may think it's a good idea, I certainly do, to set a tag colour on this. So I'm going to make that green. And that will indicate to me that the green masters are my layouts. I'm not going to do anything else on there. That should all be absolutely fine. I don't know if it is or not, to be honest, but we'll see. Looks okay to me. And there's the green dot. Right, back in here is where the content is. So in there, I'm going to select everything and copy. Go back to the new master page and paste it. Right, that does not make this automatically updatable and magic happen. It doesn't. This is still a standard page. But now we've taken our beautiful layout, we can delete it from here. And we can apply this, which will give us exactly the same impact and output. And look at that. It will indicate across the top that this is based on a master page that's green, which means it's a layout. Does it still work exactly the same way? Yes, it does. So we'll just throw in some flowers here, just by dragging and dropping these in. It works exactly the same way, but now it's a master page, which means back in here, if you think I've got 32 images, I've got 64. I need another page. Well, instead of duplicating, because you don't want to duplicate this now, you'd be duplicating all of the images, you've got a master page. So you add a page to the document, which is 2 pages. You want them after page 17, and don't extend the spread. That's for special circumstances only. And that gives you an extra page. And it even, because this one had that master applied, it automatically applies it. You can then start stacking these masters if you want, which means you could apply green behind it, you could apply page numbers to it, which is all the stuff we talk about in master pages. But that is why you would want to create a master page. So let's see that again. Add a new master page. This one is 8 images with captions. So be descriptive. It is a layout, so I'm going to make it green. Now it could be that you decide, well, I'd like something different. If a layout has captions, I'd like it to be purple. Then do that, make it purple. Right, let's do that. Here's our master page. This is where we've already set it up. Select everything and copy. Go to your master page, apply. Go back to the page it came from and delete everything on it. And then apply the master page. So we'll drag and drop that. That will give us it applied. It will give us our purple stripe. That is step 1. You are taking layouts from your standard content pages and making master pages of them. Obviously in this file, I think there was 50 of them. Yeah, there was 50 different layouts. Okay. Or 50, well, no, hang on, spreads. Let me have a look. 50 different spreads there were. So I'm not going to make you sit through me doing that 50 times. That is the principle of it. That is how it works. Right. Once you've got that far, you then need to think about creating a native Affinity template. This is a completely optional step, but I would do it if I were you. It used to be a little bit more difficult than it is now. Now it's easy to edit your template. So I would take time and do this very last step. So let's go in and have a look at that. So I'll use the same file. This is the point that you tidy it up and you set everything up and you are ready to make a template. Right, so it's going to be a Christmas album. Right, that's what we've got. I think we had a thing at the back as well somewhere. Oh, very cute. Very cute. I don't think I put anything in that though. Right, so we're ready to make a template of this. So up to File and down to Export as Template. And I'm going to stop at that point. For this to work properly, organise yourself. So what I do, let me go and I'm going to get a Finder window so I can show you what I do. So here is a Finder window. It's looking at my Dropbox, which I use an organisation system called Para, which is Projects, Areas, Resource and Archive. Now I have supplemented that with 4 additional folders. one of which is my application support. This is not your system application support, it's a standard folder. But inside it, I have folders for many, many applications, and one of those is Affinity. In here, I have organised everything to do with Affinity. Affinity fonts, my assets, my brushes, colour palettes, you name it, it's organised in here, including my templates. But because I put them on Dropbox, they are accessible from any machine and any platform. So my templates live in here. Inside my template folder, there is a range of folders. I'll do this as a demo so you can see it. So I'll add a new folder and I will call this demo. And that is where we're going to put this template. So that's what the file system looks like. And it means I never have to think. You may think, oh, well, why don't you put the MacBite stuff with MacBites? Why don't you put your ebooks with your ebook? No, don't do that. Put them all together, because otherwise you'll never track them down. So that's how I do that. So I need to go and find in Dropbox my application support, my Affinity, templates, demo, and that's where it's going to be. So let's save it in there. Right, it's saved. It's saved as a template, but this version that's open now, that's not a template. That's the original file. So I'm going to close that down. I now want to create a new photo book based on my template. So Command and N or Control and N, that brings you up your window. These are your presets. You need to access your templates, which is in the Home section, My Templates. Do these look familiar? These are the folders that were in my Dropbox Application Support Affinity Templates folder. But notice, Demo's not there, because I literally only just created it. And it doesn't automatically update. You need to add it. So I'm going to go to there. It's going to remember that the last place I was Demo. I'm going to choose that. That will add Demo at the bottom. When I go to it, there is my template. You're wondering what else I've got in here. I've got my ebooks that I create. I've got layouts that I use. I've got all of my stuff for MacBites. That's how these two were created. And obviously I've got my demo one here. If what you need to do is to create a photo book, you just need to double click it. And you're now working on a brand new file. Look down the bottom. It says Untitled. You're not editing the template. You are starting from scratch, but all of your layouts, the green and the purple, are in here for you to start with. If you decide in here, oh, I don't need that, you can now delete all 4 of these pages and not lose the layout, because the layout is a master page. Now, what if you do want to edit the template? Right, don't come in here, make changes, and then go back and overwrite the template, because anything could happen. You may have made changes in here you don't actually want to write back to the template, you've totally forgotten. So this is a better way to edit the template. Go back to New, go back to the Home, go back to your templates, and right-click on it. While the default is open as template, you also have an Edit option. If you edit and look down the bottom, it's saying this is your template file. You are now editing your template file. So if I wanted to do that, that is how I would edit the template. But do remember, if you open a template up for edit, put a cup on the table in front of you or something to remind you that you're editing the template, because it's so tempting to do what you need to do and then start adding images to it and you're still editing the template. So be careful with that. But that is how you would do it. Right. If you were with us last week, you've already got this bonus, but you might want to download it again, who knows. It is a collection of photo book layouts for Affinity. So if you want to play around and try and replicate what I've done today, they are a good starting point to work with. You can get those from elainegiles.com/scp products/photo-book-layouts-for-affinity, and the QR code there will take you straight to it. And the link is in the chat because Mike's on the ball. Right. All the sessions that I do, you will find on YouTube at youtube.com/Elaine Giles. There is a playlist that I've called Affinity with Elaine. There is the QR code for it. It has got in it all of the version 3 sessions that I've done. We started in early November with everything you need to know about the new application. We then did a layout before we did deep dive on data merge. We did creating a calendar. That one was fun. Then creating planner pages, and last week we had designing a photo book. So if you've got to this session and you're thinking, what on earth was all that about? You'd probably need to watch session 1 first. And today has obviously been advanced photo book techniques. If you have enjoyed it, please consider giving the video a like. If you have enjoyed it, I've deliberately covered up the bit that tells me how many likes it's got. So I'm not sure at the moment. So I'm going to have a look in a minute. So it's not too late to get it in and get it counted. There is also a subscribe option. So do feel free to subscribe as well. You will get first notification of all that I'm planning. And then there's the comments. Now, I don't know why YouTube have to make the comments difficult, but this is YouTube. So the comments are tricky. Right, while we're live, you're in the chat. But you can't comment. You can't put a forever comment under the video until we've finished. If you're watching on catch up, you can do that right now. And whether you're doing it later, so if you watch live, please do it later. Leave a comment. And if you are watching on catch up, we have a little emoji that we put in. And it basically says, I made it this far. And today, it's the stack of books. So put the stack of books in your comment and I'll know you got this far. Next time, what have we got next time? Well, I've already done a little bit of a teaser. This is based on a video that I did, but I'm doing a whole session on it this time. How to create a trifold brochure. If you've seen the video and you think I won't bother seeing the video, don't do that. It's a totally different way of doing it. Completely different way of doing it. That video first went out in January 2025. And then they changed the whole thing in February. And then they brought out version 3. So the method that I'll be using is completely different, and I'll take it a little bit further because I've had questions with people saying, how do I, once I've got my trifold, how do I do a mock-up of the trifold? So that is what we have next time. So thank you for being with me. I'm about to check the likes. Get it in, I'm about to check it. That is how you can contact me. And if you would like first notification of all that I do, you will find that at elainegiles.com/VIP. And now we'll have to head off into Q&A, won't we? And I'm wondering where my Q&A slide's gone. Slides are moving around here. Let me do some magic and go and find the thing. Oh, come on. Do you know what? Let's stick on there and let's just do the Q&A. Right, so the first thing I'm going to do is have a look at the likes. Let's have a look. Oh, 53, we're a mile off. We're an absolute mile off. Oh, well, shall we aim for 60 or 70 and keep it rational? So do we have questions, Mike?
We do have questions.
Right, okay. Opened up Mike's mic, away we go.
From Renee, in Canva, can you create picture frames from a shape? Can you convert a shape into a picture frame in Affinity? Sorry, in Canva, you can create a picture frames from a shape.
Does he mean Canva, as in online Canva?
I presume so. This was the one he said that you answered.
Oh, right. In that case, I've sorted it. Okay.
Right, so the next one then is, did they fix styles being updatable? That was from Ashira.
No, they didn't. If you mean object styles, no. What they added was 27 different ways to work around it, but no, they did not. It seems a logical thing for them to do because InDesign supports that, but I don't know why they didn't. It could be a technical reason. It could have been a technical reason back in the day because the apps were separate. And now they're not. That's something they'll address. But they've not made any noises about it. And there are workarounds. So while the workaround adds work for you, and I would love it if object styles automatically updated, no, they haven't fixed it.
Okay, next one is from Paula. Why do you use Eagle over Bridge?
I don't have Bridge installed on this machine. It's a long story. I do have Creative Cloud, so I have access to all of Creative Cloud. And I have it installed on a 2020 iMac that sits next to me on a separate desk. And the reason was my main computer is a Mac Studio M2. I got it as soon as it came out. Remember the 7-week wait? Oh, that was joy. No, it's 7-week back order because it was a custom build. But my Mac Studio landed on my desk and I started to install all my applications. And before I installed anything on it, because it was brand new, I checked everything that it was compatible. And at the time, Adobe had problems working on an M2 Mac. It worked on an M1 Mac, it just didn't work on an M2 Mac. So I didn't install it at that stage, and that included Bridge. So that's one reason. I just then never got round to installing it. I just use it on the other machine. The second reason is Bridge is great. Bridge is very, very fully featured and it's completely free. So I love Bridge. I really do. But Eagle, I would say, is better for what I need to do. So what Eagle allows me to do is have multiple libraries, whereas Bridge saves out to the file system as a cache. So if I don't have access, if a drive isn't mounted, I can't see it in Bridge. My libraries, multiple, in Eagle or in Dropbox, so I can use them on multiple machines. I also have all my podcasting files in it. And it's one feature, just one feature, and they've enabled it. Other applications haven't. So let me show you that. Let's come out and actually show you. Why aren't you moving? Right. Let's go to Eagle. Bring it up. Right. We need to see the MacBytes one, which is in here, which is our chapter markers. Right. Our chapter markers for MacBytes in here. I don't know why that one is there. I've got 2 community ones. Who knew? Let's get rid of it. I shouldn't have 2 community ones. Right, this is our chapter markers. So every time I make a podcast, I need these chapter markers. And you can see there's a lot of them. And in here, they go from the show art and the welcome to the show. And they go all the way down to the end and our credits at the end. So the wrap up is the last chapter marker. Right, I have called these CM and then what they are for chapter markers. But what if they would only display alphabetically? What a living nightmare. Welcome would be at the end. Backbites would be at the beginning. Basically, they'd be in completely the wrong order. What Eagle allows me to do, which I've never found another app that does it. There was an app that did it, and it died a sad death. But what this allows you to do is just manually organise stuff. If you want that between the community and the news, you can do that. So it gives you complete control of the layout of the images. That is priceless to me. Absolutely priceless. I use it more here in MacBytes, obviously. I've got the review of the year, and the reason that this review of the year, which is just the 12 months, the only reason that this works without this is that I had to put chapter marker and then the number. That is what I would have to do. But in Eagle, I don't have to do that. Now, beyond that, it's personal preference, but Eagle is amazing. It really is amazing. It does absolutely everything that I want it to. And or need it to. Okay, where you go.
Tish says she needs it in her life.
You definitely do.
I presume she means Eagle. Even I use Eagle.
The thing with Eagle is it's a one-time purchase. And that doesn't mean Affinity's definition of a one-time purchase, which is version 1. And then you pay for version 2 and then you pay for version 3. With Eagle, when you buy it, all future updates are free. I love that. And what I tend to do, because it has licensing, obviously, is when there's a new update, it's like, do I need another version? Because I'm quite happy to pay at that stage. So I would get more licenses when it's due. We are up to, is it version 3 or 4? I think we're up to 4 at the moment. But there is a new version coming out January or February. It said early 2026. So there is a new version coming, but that's no reason not to buy it as long as it still has that in the licensing that all future updates are free. But it is very, very good.
Next question.
Mm-hmm.
Apologies, I'm a few minutes... Oh, this is from Simon Newt. Apologies, I'm a few minutes behind. With the table of content, is it possible to style the tab leaders differently to the page number and text?
Do you mean a different colour, a different shape? You can basically format them however you want. So yes, you can. That would be in your text style for your talk styles. So I can show you where it is. Let's open up that file again. Oh, hang on, I'm in the wrong place now. It was the cross references, that one, wasn't it? That one. Right, let's open up that file. This good job I saved it, isn't it? Right, so in here, by default, you don't even have the dot leaders. You will find that when you are in the table of contents. So let me just come out of the table of contents. If you do that and you look at text styles, these are your standard text styles. There are no table of contents styles in there. If you go back into your table of contents, your text styles change. So you've got your talk styles. All the talk styles, and obviously I'm only using a heading 1 in here, but all the talk styles are based on the entry. So if you go in and edit the entry and you look at your tab stops, you can use whatever you want in here. I think these must be done at heading 1 level. Let me have a look. Yeah, they're done at heading 1 level. So there's your options in there. You can make changes in there. If you want underline, you want strikeout, you want anything else, the positioning of them, you can do all of that. In here, you've got all your alignment options, your position, how far from the right. It's pretty comprehensive. One thing, let's come out of here. One thing people ask is, can you have it the other way round? So we have the entries and the numbers, but here you have an option to have the numbers before the headings if you want. Now, it's added extra stuff in because I've got links in now and stuff like that, so it's gone haywire. But it would look like that. You can flip them around as well. So you can pretty much do what you like with it. Get that out of the way and go back into there. Okay.
Last question, unless there's any more to be posted. From Renee, how can I create a returned table of contents on each page?
You put it on the master page. So let's have a look at that. Let's bring that back. Right. Is this all using the same master page? So this is why you need to think about it beforehand. Right. I do have a master page called Safe Area. But I also have in here, or do I in this one? Yes, I think it's using that on all of them. Right, I think it is. So let's go into there. And you could do this with something that they see, or you could do it with something they don't see. It's completely up to you. So down here, let me have a look at this. Yep, that would work. Okay. So what I would do, let's just put a text one in. Right, so we'll put it over there. And say, let's just say contents. Right, you probably wouldn't have it quite as in your face as that. And you'd obviously need it only to appear on the digital version. But let's put that there. We would make that a bit smaller and much less in your face. So put it there. Right, you would then need to go back to that table of contents. Now, how would you do that? Well, if we look at this, it is called contents. And this is formatted with a heading 1. That's important because it needs to go back to it. Right, so in here, you would need to put a link to it. So that would be, we talk about anchors and hyperlinks together, but this would be a hyperlink. So I'm just going to open up the hyperlinks, which it's put heaven knows where. Right, it's opened it up on the other screen, which is this. Right, so I want to add a hyperlink to this. Right, what do I want to link to? So we look at it. You could link to a page. You'd probably be best linking to an anchor. Do I have an anchor for the contents? No, I don't. Right, well, that's not going to work then, is it? But what I would need to do is go into here, and where we've got hyperlinks, cross-references, we now need to see anchors. So that's why these three always work together. And I have them in the same panel, same panel group. Right, so what I would need to do first then is select the contents and add an anchor. Step 1, add your anchor. You do want it as a bookmark. It automatically chooses the text that's selected. You can change that if you want. And OK, we now have somewhere an anchor for our link to link to. Back to the template, back to our contents. We're not adding an anchor, we're adding a hyperlink. What are we linking to? We're linking to an anchor. And what's the anchor called? Contents. You can style that however you want, but there is a hyperlink style, and click OK, which is why it's gone blue. I know it's not pretty. That's the default. And it's underlined, just to add insult to injury. Right, let's move this out of the way and go to one of our pages. And I think I've taken, this one, you wouldn't want it on, and it's covered up anyway. But this one now has a link back to the contents on every page. If you wanted that, same thing. So, come out, let's get that, copy it, paste it, and put it over there. You would now have it on both sides as well. And when that's exported to a clickable PDF, that would take you back to the contents. You can, in here, check that. Let's do it this way. Right. No, it's pulled out. This will drive me insane. It never lets me drag it easily. Right. Hyperlink. Your hyperlink going back to the contents here. Right. This one. You can test it by clicking here and going to the target. So you don't have to make a PDF to test it. You just select it in the list and then you click it and it will take you to the location inside your Affinity file. And that is how you do it. Right, we got any more questions now?
No, Renee says thank you.
Right, so we got any comments or anything? We've got another 3 likes, so we're up to 56. We're way off 100.
We've got lots of comments.
Oh, give us some comments then. There you go.
Oh my goodness, priceless. Thank you, Elaine.
Yes, you can do that.
That's from Renee.
I would take the time and format it to look a little bit prettier, but apart from that, fundamentally that's what you do.
Just having a look at comments. Hang on, is that a question? Can you add a data merge somewhere into this mix, like for pricing, that will be different for retail than it is for wholesale? Would it work the same as planners?
You can add a data merge anywhere you like, so yes, that would work. If you're, I know it's a photo book, but people may be ordering copies of the photos from the photo book. So yes, you could do that. You could even hook it up to multiple data sources if they're different prices and have different versions of it. Another way to do that would be to have like a wholesale layer and what was the other one? Wholesale and retail. So you could have a retail layer and a wholesale layer and then decide which you're going to include at the point that you print it out or make a PDF of it. So yes, you could.
Okay, do you want to read more comments? Because there's no other questions.
Oh, we sorted all the questions.
Yes.
Good grief. Go on, let's have a couple more comments.
Oh, Elaine, I adore you.
Oh, steady on.
There you go.
Was that you?
No, but I adore you.
Oh, isn't that sweet?
No, that was Tish.
Okay. Right, well, in that case, we'll call it a day and we'll be back next week. Obviously, between now and then, there is the not so insignificant matter of Christmas. So whether you're celebrating Christmas or any other festival, do have fun. For us, it's Christmas, isn't it? So there'll be a Christmas lunch involved. Might have to take some photos of that and include it next week. Although next week, it's probably going to be a takeaway menu, isn't it? Which, after Christmas is what most people are doing.
True.
So I think we'll do that. So do have a wonderful break. I hope you get to spend time with family and friends. And we will see you again. But for the moment, I'm going to say goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.
We'll both see you next time. Stay safe, guys.